First of all, I'm very glad to be here, I've come to visit with you. We don't necessarily call this work or, you know, in our way, we're going to visit with each other. We want to share ourselves with you, and of course, we like to know more about, about yourselves. And it's always a pleasure. I've made many trips to UFL, spoke to different areas, topics. But the important thing that I always like to share is in the way that we gain knowledge, and in the long run, like my age and maybe some younger, those develop into wisdom. As I have heard others speak about, wisdom is not something you just go get. It's an inspiration that comes to you with all the knowledge that you have accumulated, and one day the light will come on and you'll say, so that's the way it is. You've gained wisdom, and that comes from you, with your combined knowledge and, of course, experience in life. You make some sense of it. In our language, sometimes we'll go up, as a young person, we'll go up to an elder and we'll ask them a question. And they'll just tell you, it's just the way it is. That's the way it is. Without giving you, or explaining to you, perhaps you are not old enough or have not experienced those things that he'll talk about. But as we grow in life, get older and we go through life and life's experiences, one day maybe one of your grandchildren will come up to you and ask them the question that you ask your grandparents, and you'll say, nito ka nistanis. That's the way life is, or that's the way things are. You have gone to figure things out that makes sense. And the child or the young person may not be able to comprehend the same. So what we're saying, it takes time, it takes experience. You have to experience many things before you can understand. And as a young person, I get frustrated when I don't get, the rationale or the reasons for things the way they are. But time will allow you to come to some conclusion or understanding. So I don't know, wisdom, I guess to some, we have our own thoughts about it. Even in the non-traditional or non-native way, I've heard people speak to that thing. One day you'll come to you as an inspiration. Then it'll just click, and you'll say, see that? So that's the way things are, or meant to be. So I think it's universal. Just want to share, when I was a young child, maybe about 5, 6, 6, somewhere in there. We all used to go to our grandmother, about 6, sometimes 8 of us. She had 2 log cabins. One of the log cabins had board floor, and the other one has dirt floor. So in this one that has dirt floor, she has a wood stove, the old wood stove with the covers on. And we like that because the floor, you kind of just throw water on the clay, and eventually the clay will be smooth as this. It's just like having a floor. So with all, of course, at the time there's no electricity, central heating, and all that, plumbing and stuff like that. It's just a log cabin with a table, with a wood stove, and maybe a pail of water next to it. And then we'd sleep on the floor. And when we all go to bed, because there's no lights, so you don't turn the lights off. When it gets dark, we just go to bed. And she'd sit up in her favorite chair, and then she'll start smoke, because she likes to smoke, and have a cup of tea. Then you'll start with nappy stories. It's one of a trickster, a person that will deliberately go against advice or direction, and they'll get into some trouble. And that is a learning process for us to understand if we go too far to one side, then we simply go over the cliff. Or if we go the other way, it could happen also, because life, there's opposites in life, the duality of life. Everything comes in two. That kind of understanding, then she'll explain to us, what the story, the moral of the story is. The only light that we'd have is the wood stove has the covers, and when the stove gets old, it kind of warps, so you get light from that. And the thing about it, she'll tell us, you listen good. And that helps us to listen well, is when the lights are off and there's no lights, just from those cracks in the stove. So in the way that she'll tell the story, she'll be very detailed. The kind of tree, the kind of flowers, the river, she'll make noises, and the wind too, So when you close your eyes, she actually takes you to the story itself. You start to picture in your mind, and so you actually are there in the story itself. So, of course, we're there, and we need to acknowledge that we're still listening, and we'll say, we say that, It's just to acknowledge that you're still there, you still are hearing her speaking to you. And then one of us would fall asleep, then the next one, and the next one. Pretty soon there'll be no more Then she'll know that we all went to sleep. So Napio stories are kind of linked from one to the other one. and the other one. So when you get old and you become a storyteller, you're well versed in each one of them. And you can speak to the lessons that come out of them, you know. So we get to it's just like a book, a story book. But there's a lot of other things that when you get older, you can hear the same stories, but there's a little more added to it to accommodate the older persons or middle-aged or younger adults. That's it, the lessons in themselves. So I can use not your story to you, but I'll make up, maybe add a little bit, and to make it interesting, so that you'll listen well and learn from that. So that's when I was very young. I was taught to listen well, and we're always are being told, "Istsit," very assertive. "Istsit," listen, Sometimes you're going to only hear it once. And people that don't listen, maybe they'll try another time or another time. Then they'll just say, "Awatsaps. This kid is crazy. He's not ready yet to listen, So you missed out. You miss out in a lot of the lessons that come with the stories. It's just like the older storybooks that we used to have, but not the ones we have today. All the different strange creatures that zap each other with a gun, and that somebody shoots them, a large explosion, but then they're still there. So you cannot get the moral of the story itself. It's all based on violence, that kind of. And I don't know why our children like to see that. They'd rather watch the violence rather than watching a nice story on TV about the country with the flowers and animals, the reality of life, They want to see the non-reality, all the exaggerated stuff. So, and that's part of our way of knowing. It's a long, continuous process. Now, in our way, in our language, we use other parts of our, like our hands. While I'm speaking to you, I'll make those gestures, to kind of enhance what I'm trying to convey to you, And you watch our younger people. And I have a lot of fun watching younger people talking on the phone, or on their cell phone, and they'll be making all kinds of, signs as if the person is there watching them. It's just a habit that we have, and body. We use our body language too. The tone of our voice, like I said earlier, istsit, that ought to be very assertive. Get your message across to them, And of course, that's what politicians use, Some are not all politicians are bad, but when they want to bring their message across, you have all the banners, written messages, that we use also to convey or to convince other persons or another person. And the other thing that I think is important, in Blackfoot, we don't have a whole bunch of words like in a dictionary. A lot of the Blackfoot terminology is a whole concept in itself. So when I speak to Roy in our language, don't need to speak that many words to bring whatever it is across to him. I'll do it in a very subtle way. And of course, he has gone through that same experience. He already has that in his memory. Sometimes you just give a cue, like this. That means a lot. Good day, suka be, you give a cue to somebody like, or you go like this, no good, you point to somebody and you go like this. That person, not a good person. And that's when we speak our language, we use a combination of those to really bring out what we want to convey to the other person. Now, the other important thing that we always are mindful or very careful is that we don't like to, and we're taught not to send bad energies to another person. If I was to swear at you, and I'm doing it for you to react to it in a negative way, maybe it'll hurt you, hurt your feelings, and you might say, gee, I must have done something wrong to that person. What did I do? So that's that sense of guilt, And that's the power we have over people, If I came in the door and I said, hi, and I go around and shake everybody's hand and I hug a couple, and that brings that energy in the room. So we can create, combined with our energies, our powers, an environment in this room. We can create that. Or we can come in here and start arguing with each other, sending bad vibes, and create a very negative, destructive environment. Now, the other one, which we always like to do when we come to a group of us, we try and set the tone to a positive environment. Now, a positive environment is a healing element. We get healed. Person in here might be feeling really bad about something, but you go into that kind of environment, that atmosphere, positive, it'll affect you. It'll impact on you. And that's part of your healing. All right, from your physical, your emotions, and of course the spirit part of you, which is your essence as a human being. So we always are mindful of when we meet, when we have gatherings, we always have that in place, in our minds, to bring good energies to the group. Unless if it's about our chief and council, it may not be all positive, because in our way, our chief and council are Nina or Kininonia. We are the children of our leaders. And you know how our children or grandchildren, when they get fussy and they want things, they'll come to you and they go through a tantrum. I want this, I want that, I want to go to McDonald's, on a toy that they've seen on TV. So, and that's a relationship that we have. And in our tribal office, it's also applied to that notion that this is the home or the place of our parents, And if there's a lady in council, then it's our fathers and our mother. And of course, it extends beyond that. Like my role, I am a grandparent to all tribal members. We apply those things to the reserve structure, family structure, organization. So those are important things that, and of course, on the other side, we have the protocols that are associated with those kind of relationship, and we get to know protocols by being part of the societies. At an early age, you will become part of a society which is more social than anything else. We don't go there and start teaching them serious stuff and all, but they try to get them to understand why behaving in a good manner results into this, or if you behave in a bad way, it results into that. Now, the new thing that I've noticed, parents say, okay, I'm not going to buy you any more toys until you're smart enough, until you do your bit. So that's not the right approach. You're bribing, So the child grows up with anything that I do, I must receive something. I must get rewarded. But in our way, and we continue to try to do that, but we're in competition with the television when they have all those commercials with toys and new kind of toys and the rock and roll stuff and all that. It's a stiff competition for us to get to our children, our grandchildren. And the way we teach them is to explain through an education process. You have to bring the child, your child or grandchild, and you explain to them, if you do this, it might impact on somebody else. It might hurt somebody. And you don't want to hurt people. You don't want to hurt your mother, your father, or your siblings, So you try and make them understand, But like I said, we have a very stiff competition with the commercials on TV. And right away, if my grandson's seen something new, Grandpa, could you buy me that? I promise I'll do this. Now they've learned to start using that same method. Of course, we always, as grandparents, we always give in, because traditionally, the grandparents are basically just to love your grandchildren. It's the parents, uncles, and aunts that will do the discipline part of it. So we have different terms to speak to them, say. And like I said, most Blackfoot terms has a concept within itself. Inestisin is a one word, but it means many things. Inestisin, when you make peace with another party, another person. We can use it in different situations. In our case, way back in 1877, that's what we used. Apparently, the imperial crown knew about the necessities, the treaty process. So we have our own notion of treaty process, spirit and intent of treaty. With all the different tribes that we sometimes will come into a relationship. We may be at odds with them, but we kind of get tired of the conflict and other losses. Then our leaders would decide that we must have peace. So we go through a process, peacemaking, treaty peacemaking. And in modern day way, I can make treaty with Roy. If we argue or if we were to pursue something, So I'll say, well, Mike say let's settle it peacefully. And when that's done, we both agree to what terms or conditions, and that is a new start. It draws the line, and relationship is different from before. It's a new relationship, with the understanding that what goes with that process, And sometimes if it's a conflict between two families, if it's a feud, then if the leaders of the families come together and make peace, of course all the families, the extended families, even a clan, will all be at each other, So this body and this body, they'll be in conflict with each other, And when treaty happens, then, you forget whatever was the situation yesterday. Once you smoke the pipe or make treaty, then it's a new beginning, it's a new relationship. And the two parties, members of the two parties, come together and they treat each other as if yesterday never happened. It just wipes out, and you have a clean slate to bring back the good relationship. Now, it's a good process. We're using it today in our own tribal justice system. We have a peacemaking program where young people might go to, might be charged with a serious offense, and the courts may determine with some help, and this individual might benefit more going through the peacemaking process. So in that process, you have the victim, you have the perpetrator or the offender, and you have the community. So the victim gets a chance to talk about how that incident or that offense, how did it impact on me, my family, And then, of course, the offender will talk a little bit about himself or herself, that she or he was raised in a real dysfunctional family, been subjected to drinking, maybe drugs, break up in the marriage of their parents, may have hardship getting their requirements, their needs. So the offender gets to talk about his background, and maybe we may start to understand why he's behaving that way. Then usually the elders they represent the community, and they'll talk about what is acceptable in this community or in any community. And bootlegging, drug trafficking, violence, and many other things are not acceptable. So they try and determine what level, what is acceptable or what is not acceptable. So we always try to move higher, what is acceptable. But unfortunately today, as we sometimes have, some, whatever we see, we tend to think that we're way down there. See people out in the streets and they're all like that. And our argument, like I was with leadership way back, and then as an elder, we are the products of assimilation, government policies, government legislation. The Indian Act was so powerful it could turn a white lady into an Indian lady, and the other way too, an Indian lady to a white lady. That legislation was so powerful, it was, but that has changed recently, So it's too bad that we're subjected to the notion of extinguishment, But we're here. We've always been here. We're here together. You're not going to go away. We're not going to go away. So why don't we learn how to live together? And how do we do that? We understand you, and you understand us. And a lot of times when I come to the university here, I try to bring that message, If we're going to have a healthy community, for all of us, by all means, we must get together, and learn from each other. There's things that we could show you, and just a lot of things that we learn from, So that's and in our way, life is greater peace. Life is receiving gifts of knowledge. Knowledge is a gift to all of us. And in our way, when we do ceremonies and transferring rights to the person, and we'll do that. We do some things such as smudging and praying, but then we're going to give Roy the right to sing the sacred songs, the sacred colors, the sacred rattles, staff and all, But, Roy then would go like this, And that's a gesture that says, yes, I accept the gift, you know. And when you do that, there's some things that are attached to them, which is obligations. Say, whatever I receive or whatever I give to another person, they should know, you know. The idea is that they need to give that to somebody else, maybe younger than, you know. It becomes an obligation to the receiver. And then we're trying to apply that to our younger people, that you must start to accept education as a gift to you. The textbooks that you have, you probably never met the author of them, but that person might have spent years and years of research on your behalf. That's a gift to you, and you must receive it. You must appreciate that, because in the future, you don't want to be the one that's going to have to be scratching their head. Oh yeah, we took that in class way back in the 60s or 80s. But I forgot what it was all about. That's because you weren't listening. You were not receptive to the gift of knowledge that is being given to you. And we're trying to address the problem of retention of our students. It's a big problem, you know. It's because our young people do not have a sense of ownership of things that are being given to them, knowledge. So we're trying to work this belief system or this philosophy into the younger, you know, that they need to appreciate what is being taught in this university, college, high school, and K to 12. They need to start perceiving things in that way. And when I went through school, I had to, being a Catholic, I was an altar boy. I spoke Latin. You know, altar boys have to know Latin, but by memory. Today, I still hear sometimes Mass that is held in Latin, and I sang in Latin hymns, you know. And I hear the priest saying Latin from the book, but I did not understand the language. So today, I'm 73 years old, and you ask me, Dominus Vobiscum, what does that mean? It's a Latin, and I don't know. But I used it every day of the 10 years I was in residential school, you know. And that's something. And then, of course, I took French for 3 years. The only thing I know is mais oui. You know, people might take it in a different way, or as an insult. But I don't know. Nobody took the effort to teach me what those words meant. You know, and the sisters, they'll come and bang you on the head, and they'll speak French to you. You know, you don't know what they're saying, so you don't hurt that much when you don't understand. But that's when I was 7 years old. I went to school. I spoke no English. My mother told me A, B, C. or ABW. That's your name. I went to school and a nurse wrote Andrew Blackwater. And I argued like hell. That was not my name. And I went and drew ABW. That's what my mother told me. That's your name. So, but she never went to school too. She didn't know how to write. You know. So, but in 1 year, I learned to speak English. We went through an immersion, a very strict immersion. Forbidden to speak your language. Forbidden to sing your songs. And even the games that we play. So it's, there's different, I suppose there's different situations that we can speak to. We can speak to those that have worked for us, because people have applied those in a more constructive, in a more positive way. And I learned that, and I keep that. I can speak about it today as if I was there 65 years ago. So that's, I shouldn't have told you my age.
Yeah.
So that, just to share, where I come from, in respect to educating people, and the different ways that I have had personal experience about. But sometimes you'll listen to us, and we're not going to rattle on and on, because it only takes a few words, a few gestures, and we've told the whole story. If questions, he'll answer.